Hello and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And we have a whole table full of guests. So we're just going to go around, have everybody introduce themselves and where you're from. Starting here.
Hey, I'm Travis Tate. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm here at FanX. I have a podcast called Late to the Party with Travis Tate. Half of my equipment is on this, so it's a co-podcast.
It is a co-podcast.
We're going to combine it.
I'm Colin, Stolen Droids Podcast.
I'm Kiki Furia, cosplayer, gamer, all-around nerd.
I'm Zach. I'm Colin's soulmate.
I'm Marley Haywood from the Cutscenes and Cupcakes podcast.
I'm Stefan Watson from Cracked Brain Podcast.
I'm Lindsay Goodwin from the Cutscenes and Cupcakes podcast.
Ooh, you had me at cupcake. Rich Bonaducci with Fox 13.
I'm an average black dude that does dope shit.
Jay, don't mess up my podcast.
I'm sorry. All right. I'm Jay Washington from Collider Live, Collider Movie Talk, host of the Mad Titan podcast, resident supervillain, and a whole lot more. There we go.
Woo! I'm James Estrada, nerdy at home dad, formerly of Geek Parenting Podcast. You should go listen to it, even though I'm not on it. And I think
Yeah, I think that's
Yay.
everybody.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome. This is a great panel of podcasters and nerds and geeks that we've got going on here.
I'm just
and
an
why do we
average
have
black dude.
Your microphone does not like that.
Jay's mic keeps going down. I don't know what to think about that, but so this is what happened last time we were here at FanX. Is we kind of started this tradition where we get a whole room full of people that are passionate about nerds and a topical subject. And last time we did this, we talked about the Star Wars trailer, and it was chaos, but it was amazing. It was so much fun. And now we are going to tackle Spider-Man.
And I just want to say it's chaos again. Look at all of these cords on the table.
None of them are labeled. None of them have.
Is like,
Your OCD is
I think we need to bring in a cable management specialist.
we can't afford a cable management specialist.
Can we get an intern?
Well,
So
I
why
want to
are we
know.
talking about Spider-Man, Val?
Okay, so one, I love Spider-Man, so that's the first reason why. Two, there is a ton of stuff going on about Spider-Man and will he or won't he with everything in Sony and Disney. Also, Tom Holland is at FanX, and so I figured he's here. Most of it at the table have touched him in some way in the last couple of days, and
It's
not
exactly
in a weird,
how it sounds.
Not
No,
in a weird
it
way.
is. It's how it sounds.
I have a
He wasn't
restraining
wearing
order
his
now against
consent
me.
card.
Look,
So
we
I
got
felt like it
a
was good.
picture as a group with Tom Holland. It wasn't creepy at all.
It was creepy
I
because
saw
of
the
you.
picture.
You made
I
it
saw
creepy,
the
and I
picture.
love it. It was the best birthday present ever. Thank you to my podcast family. So, basically, nothing is off the table. You can talk about Spider-Man animated. You can talk about the old Spider-Man movies. You can talk about the new Spider-Man movies. You can talk about whether you think Disney is actually going to bring him back in, even though they said they closed the door. But we all know that could change tomorrow. So, just jump in. Let's talk about the Spidey.
What about erotic fan fiction?
No.
Dad said
What
no.
about
Dad said
the
no.
Indian Spider-Man movie?
What about Spider-Man?
I think before we get too far away from the picture, we need to point out that you know those pictures where you go to Disneyland and they tell the family, put your hand in the middle and look down at Tinkerbell. That's basically what Jake is doing.
Yeah, so go to our
He's
Facebook
looking at
page, Movies
Tinkerbell.
That Make Us, and look at the weird face on Jake. I will be making face socks out of the face. You can actually make face socks. I will be taking his face from my Spider-Man picture with Tom Holland and putting them on socks, and you can order those later this year.
I was going to say, if I don't get a pair of face socks,
I love
I'm going to
face
be
socks.
pissed for Christmas.
You will be the first. You will be the second person to get face socks
Thank
because
you.
I'm going to be first.
All right, I just wanted to make that clear. Okay.
So,
On the
first
record.
of
It's
all,
my face. How am I not the first or the second person to get the face off?
You can see your face
I'm just
every
being
day.
honest with you that I'm going to be first. You will get them at the same time. Calm down. Okay.
All right, that's fair.
Okay.
Can I
so,
put an order in as well?
Sure. Everyone at the table can get some. I'm not paying for all of them, but if you would
Oh,
like
then
some.
sorry.
Listen, I work in radio. I don't make anything.
I work in retail.
Okay, so Spider-Man, the Spider-Man that is right now, Tom Holland, he is under contract to do Spider-Man 3. We have no idea. Well, right now we think, as of right now, Disney is not going to be involved in this movie. It's going to be a Sony-only movie. Thoughts about this?
But why?
I'm just saying, forget about the Area 51 raid. I'm ready to raid Sony headquarters because this is stupid. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand.
But isn't it Disney's fault, not Sony?
It is
so,
Disney.
I'm going to throw that out there, and you guys all know how much I love the Disney. It is kind of Disney's fault. They are not getting together with Sony saying that they agree with the contract. Disney wants more money. Is it a secret that Disney likes money? No, it's not. Before, Disney had a very small percentage of this, and then they said now that we've been helping you make this character popular, and they have, and I give them that, and we've been making these movies successful, we want 50%. Sony says you can't go from 5% to 50%. No. And so they can't come to a conclusion. So it is Disney's fault in that they won't come to a conclusion that Sony is okay with, but Sony also needs to realize that, and people, you can send the hate mail to me this time, okay? Disney is the prettier friend in this Mean Girls situation. Sony is not the cute friend that Disney keeps inviting around. They need to know where they sit, and they need to realize they need to give Disney more money.
And you mentioned that Disney wants more money from the Spider-Man movies, but they're also offering to pay more money to make the... So it's, I mean, just in defense of the mouse. Because they need help. They need help.
And I like how you said that. Like, we know what Marvel and Disney can produce. We've seen it time and time again. 22 movies, like, we've seen it. So it's just weird to me that Sony would be like, yeah, sure, we'll give you a little bit more. I would if it was me. I just think it's weird after all this story that now he's just ripped from the MCU. I mean, that's just
I think part of it for me, part of it is a little optimistic about what they can do with Venom and Carnage and Spider-Man now.
Which I haven't seen Venom, and I'm a little skeptical to see it.
So this thing about Venom, it's not the perfect movie, but I think Tom Hardy did a decent job with it. I think that given another chance at it, that I don't think that it's something that they should just sweep under the rug. Right. I think it's something that they should develop a little bit more with 2 more movies.
Right.
And I think that you look at the trilogy as a whole rather than just the one movie.
And I got into an argument with someone who was like, oh, well, like, Sony's produced, like, great movies. I was like, what, Tobey Maguire's in Into the Spiderverse? Because that's all I got, really. Like, which are fantastic movies, but compared to Marvel.
There was only 2/3 of Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stop it.
We don't
talk about the third one.
Well, I love the fact that we have Andy Serkis as the director. That gives me a lot of hope for the sequel.
The only thing that I like about, and I'm going to get huge hate for this, Tobey Maguire's rendition of Spider-Man are all of the memes that have come from it. Because I thought I was an ugly crier. And then I just go to the interwebs and I say, I'm not as ugly as that. So I feel better about myself today.
I feel like the biggest problem going forward is that now Peter Parker has all of Tony Stark's technology at the end of the movie. And so Tony Stark's technology doesn't exist in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So they're just going to have to, both movie series now are going to have to rewrite that to somehow somebody else gets Tony Stark's technology. And then in the Sony Spider-Man movies, all of a sudden Peter Parker just doesn't have that anymore.
But I think you can write around that with a character like Shuri, because Shuri's already dealing with a lot of the tech that Tony's dealing with. Like,
it's great to go to her.
Yeah.
What is Sony going to do? Like, hey, remember how Spider-Man had missiles and stuff? He doesn't have that anymore.
What about the blip? How are they going to explain the blip without MCU?
Right. If they're not gonna have it with Spidey anymore, like having that technology, I think this is just a great open door for us to get Riri Williams as Ironheart in, and we need that. We need that next.
So I think with all of this chat, obviously the door isn't closed, because unless they're going to get super creative, Sony.
You don't have to laugh when you say that.
I'm sorry. Unless they get super creative. Then
I heard the dialogue in Venom. I don't know if they can get super creative.
And they can, but what I'm really excited that Sony is doing, is that they said that we're going to get an Into the Spiderverse 2.
Yes.
Hallelujah. So how many of you love Into the Spider-Verse? How many of you are like hashtag that's my Spider-Man?
That's why I'm going to get that tattoo.
What I love so much about Into the Spider-Verse is that we all love superheroes here. That's why we're at this convention. And we all believe in them, and they mean so much to us, and we want to be them. But Into the Spider-Verse, I think, said it in such a way anyone can wear the mask. And I felt like, even though it was an animated film, it wasn't a live action, but it probably made me feel more represented than any other superhero movie has made me feel in a long time, which is crazy because I'm a 40-year-old white woman. And I cried. I went into the theater and watched that movie 5 times. I downloaded the soundtrack 2 days before the movie came out. Like when I go to the gym, this is my jam.
Oh yeah, on the Stairmaster, those songs are the best.
Stairmaster.
That's what I do.
I do squats, man.
Wearing the mask and anybody can sound like Post Malone.
We should have invited Post Malone here. He's in town right now. So, anybody thoughts on Spideyverse 2?
I think it should
can't
happen.
wait.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I want more Spider-Ham.
Where are they going to go? Where's the story going to go?
I would say to Spider-Ham's universe. Let's see the animal Avengers. Let's get Bunny Hulk.
We can't. You can't do that. They can't have Marvel characters.
Yeah. They won't have the
Gotta say
Avengers.
Sony.
It's not the Avengers, it's the Pavengers.
But you bring up an interesting point. This
Revengers.
movie, I think the sequel would be traveling to different universes.
Yeah.
So I think you would see Miles and the gang go to the Noir universe, go to 2099, go to Looney Tune Land, right? I think that's the direction they'd go with number 2, which would give it kind of a Wreck-It Ralph flavor, which I don't necessarily mind. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, you look back at one of their best games that they created, Shattered Dimensions. And that game not only was incredibly fun, but the storyline made so much sense with it. So it's one of those where when you have the multiverse and you finally open that up, you can cue back of like, oh, remember when we did this and it was a wildly successful game? Let's now make a movie out of literally just that storyline, which was honestly putting different Spideys in different universes away from each other and whatnot, having them try to figure out, oh, this is how this Spider-Man has to interact in this. It's like in this world.
It'll be interesting to see just how it works out and to find out how much of an influence that Marvel had on the first one, because they did have a part in it. It wasn't just Sony doing that. This is just Sony on your own. Like, all right, you put on your big boy pants. Let's see what you can do.
And that's what I'm scared about, because it's great. I'm part of the Utah Film Critics Association. We not only voted Spider-Verse as the animated film of the year, but as film of the year, and it's going to be tough to top. I think
that's
without
me. Like,
help.
I was excited when I heard the announcement, but at the same time, I was like,
well, they've got Lord and Miller coming back, which I think is fantastic. They're going to work on the script and co-direct. I think they're going to focus on Peter and Gwen. Yeah. I think that's going to be kind of the way that they go with it.
I can just hear this mic crackling. I didn't know what it was going to do. I was like, it was going to blow up in my face.
It's good right now.
Okay, cool, because I was just nervous as shit. So here's what's about to happen. They're going to drop this Spider-Man movie. It's not going to make nearly as much money. Spider-Verse 2 is going to make money because it's an Academy Award-winning movie. Then Sony's going to be kicking themselves, because the only reason this happened is Sony also got big headed and thought, we don't need Marvel. We don't need you. Well, because Spider-Man Far From Home made $1.109 billion.
It's their most successful movie,
it beat
right?
out Skyfall. Right. But the only reason it made that money was because it was the follow-up film for the highest grossing movie in history.
Avatar.
oh my gosh, let's throw down.
I have made an enemy of the Mad Titan today. So it's not my best move.
Zach, it's been nice knowing you, buddy.
It's only because of I didn't even say average black dude. It's only because of Avengers Endgame why Spider-Man made $1.1 billion. And the fact that Marvel has put a storyline and made a Spider-Man we actually care about. We didn't care about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man come Spider-Man 3. We didn't care. We for damn sure didn't care about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, because we'll never forget Jamie Foxx lost a gap by getting struck by electric eels. Did nobody pay attention to that? His Max character had the biggest gap ever, and when all of a sudden when he was Electro, he had beautiful teeth.
Yeah.
He had beautiful teeth.
Supervillains have beautiful teeth.
After that movie came out, I was like running around with a lightning rod, like, come on.
The problem, so when it comes to Spider-Verse was more, they had a small consulting thing when it comes to Spider-Verse. It was nothing as big as with Spider-Man itself. You don't have to worry. So as long as Lord and Miller stay involved, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing you have to worry about with Spider-Verse. If Lord and Miller go away, then that movie flops no matter what. Because you don't want another director coming in and trying to touch a property that's already been established.
Right.
We have had that too many times.
And it fails.
fails.
Okay, so Speaking about Far From Home, and we have one panelist, one podcaster here that has not seen the movie, and I'm just going to keep pointing it out.
I got jobs and kids.
This is about to get heavy.
No, he's okay with it.
No, watch this. So Tony Stark is dead. Okay, Spider-Man has Tony Stark technology, and Jake Gyllenhaal really wasn't Mysterio.
Okay, so, but what I want to say, so you made a good point, Jay, of the only reason that this Spider-Man movie was so successful was because of Endgame. Mm-hmm. And I love Spider-Man. I did not like Far From Home as much as I liked, Homecoming. So, I totally agree. Does everybody feel like I only went and saw that twice in the theater, and one is because, I went to see it as a critic, and the other one is because if I like a movie, I usually like to go, give money to it. But like Spider-Verse, I went and saw it as many times as I had time for and money for to go see it in the theater. There were some problems with Far From Home, but there were some things that I absolutely loved about it. And I did love how he kind of passed the torch of technology to Peter, and you kind of had that moment on the plane.
It's a plot device. The movie was a 2.5-hour plot device.
It wasn't as good a movie as I thought it was going to be. When I'm looking at the numbers that it's bringing in, if they would have put that movie anywhere else other than Endgame,
it would not have made that money.
The movie is not strong enough. It's not a bad movie.
But you got to remember,
it's not the best.
But Val, you got to remember, when it comes to the MCU, they have a lot of movies. We tend to be like, oh, these movies don't make any sense. Marvel had 23 movies to tell one story.
Right.
Every movie is not a movie that you just like, yo, you have to grip onto. Thor: The Dark World is a 2.5. Wait, no. Thor: The Dark World is a 2.5-hour movie to talk about one thing. Yeah. Just to talk about the ether.
Yep.
That's all Thor: The Dark World is about. Ant-Man and the Wasp are literally plot device movies to introduce the character and to introduce what? The quantum realm. Mm-hmm. So Spider-Man: Far From Home is just to say, look, this is life after the snap. Right. That's it.
Right, and I understand that, but when everybody when regular people, nerds, when regular people, when pedestrians look at the numbers of this film, like my morning show partner that isn't into nerdy stuff at all, and he's like, Val, this movie must be one of the best movies you've ever seen because look at the numbers, and I'm like, it's actually not the best Marvel movie that's out there, but like you said, the device of putting it where it was, Sony is not going to have that device to make whatever Spider-Man movie they make that much money.
But they do have its pedigree. They've got Tom Holland. They got 2 successful movies, and all that behind it. And people are going to like that. They're going to check it out. Oh, yeah. I think it's going to make money right away, but it's its longevity that's going to be.
It's like you said a minute ago, Rich. Though it's got to live up to Into the Spiderverse, which is universally loved by just about everybody. So even if Sony does make a really good Spider-Man movie, people might walk away going, wasn't as good as Into the Spider-Verse. I guess Disney was right.
Can we talk about Mysterio though? Because I thought Mysterio was dope.
I kind of liked him too.
When I saw that they cast Jake Gyllenhaal in that role,
you were so excited.
I was like, the Gyllenhaal, they're bringing in the Gyllenhaal. And then when I was watching the movie, and I'm like, oh, he's a douche. This is perfect. I love what they did here. And then I loved it. But of course, he has my favorite line in any movie ever that he says to Spider-Man, and he says, or Peter Parker, and he says, don't ever make anyone make you feel bad for being the smartest person in the room. And I love that line so much that I'm going to get it tattooed on my body. But like for him to be in a room with all the people that he was in the room with that have been fighting these adults, they've been fighting wars, all this stuff. And this kid walks in, this little puny kid walks in, and he is the smartest person in that room. And he is going to be better than Iron Man. And I love Iron Man. But Iron Man knew it. But Iron Man knew it.
Yeah, that's why I gave him the glasses.
He gave him the glasses because Iron Man had so many personal problems. He had so many things that he had to go up against, and he knew this kid was better than him, and that's why they had such a connection, and he knew he could handle all the smarts.
And I think he knew that from when he interviewed him in his apartment, and he was like, oh, you're just doing this not for money, and what's your angle? Fighting the good fight? Yeah.
But Tony also saw... Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I get it. You just know I have to put Tony up on the top. Okay.
Tony also saw in himself, like in the latter movies, that his ego had caused a lot of problems, and he didn't see an ego in Peter Parker, and that was why he passed it on to him. Not just because he was a genius, because he was actually a good person, where Tony had many flaws that he had become aware of.
Well, and I think you've got to credit Tony a little bit for Peter Parker being better than him. I mean, obviously he's already got better motives and everything, but Tony wanted him to be better than him. And so he mentored him to be, and that's what we do when we mentor someone. We want them to grow and be better than who we are and what we are. So Peter Parker's great, but only because of Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good heart. Good heart. I know.
So I love this iteration of Spider-Man. A lot of people, when we heard we were getting another reboot, we were like, great, we got to watch Uncle Ben die again.
Right.
But in this universe, really the only key Uncle Ben gets is his initials on a suitcase. Tony Stark is this Spider-Man's Uncle Ben.
Yes.
This is the guy who gives him the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, right?
Yes.
And Spider-Man is a character who carries his guilt.
Yep.
He does not let that go. He doesn't let other people carry it for him. That's his biggest character defect, is he carries that guilt. And so now I'm wondering how that's such a pivotal part of the character is carrying the guilt and cleaning up Tony's messes. Because you look at both his solo movies, both of his villains came around because of Tony Stark.
The entire MCU villainry is because of Tony Stark.
What a joke.
Ultron, everybody, all the villains that you have in a sense are because of Tony Stark.
He just wanted to put a suit of armor around the world.
Think about it. When knowing about the Tesseract, Thanos knew about Tony from the jump. He even said it. Thanos told him, "You're not the only one burdened with great knowledge."
That's true.
Thanos knew about him from jump.
I'm going to say Malekith, maybe not.
No one knew about an ugly ass elf. Nobody. No one.
We already explained to you, Thor: The Dark World had one purpose, and that was ether. Everything else doesn't matter.
Wait, it wasn't to show a fun ice giant frolicking through New York in the post credits. That seemed real important.
Also, another purpose of Spider-Man: Far From Home, I forgot to say, is to officially wrap up the story. Because they wrapped up the story the best way you could ever in that movie. When you brought back the scientist from Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
When you brought back the scientist, said Tony, the one that Obadiah Stane yelled at.
Yeah.
I must too lost my mind. I was like, that is how you close a story.
Right.
You got again.
It was Ralphie from Christmas Story.
Yeah. It's Alfie from Christmas. Yeah, it was Ralphie from Christmas Story. It's Ralphie. You got everybody that Tony Stark has ever pissed off, and it comes full circle until the very end. Now it's like we're all working together because Tony's a jerk, but see, Tony knew he was a jerk, and he was trying to make amends for it, but not on the small levels.
Right.
But that's like you both are saying, like those are the clever things that Marvel is so good at, like the nod to Uncle Ben with that, even Into the Spiderverse, that all of the way Uncle Bens have died. Like for Gwen, it was her best friend, it was Peter. His uncle was the villain. Like those are like clever storytelling to me. And so even in Far From Home, like Mysterio being that like just the jerk that he was, like such a douche. He was also smart and could play off of that. It felt like almost to me in a way that it was this villain towards Iron Man in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Peter was just caught in the middle, if that makes sense. So I loved the visuals, and I thought that was a nice twist to like the 90s cartoon with all of the illusions that were happening. I just thought that was brilliantly done until he showed dead Tony, and then it was the zombie, and I was like, kick his ass, Peter. I'm done. You went too far, Mysterio. You went too far.
Loved that scene.
He went too far.
That first like illusion fight scene that he had with Mysterio in the warehouse there, that was so cool.
It was brilliant.
Oh my gosh, that was the best way to showcase his air quote power set, right? In that movie. I loved it. But Jay's about to disagree with me in three.
No, I'm just gonna, no. I was just gonna say, I keep thinking about how we keep talking about how will Sony go forward. You got to think about it. They try, minus Tony Stark's death and the technology, minus that. If you take out Aunt May and Happy, this is a Spider-Man movie on its own.
Yeah. You think they'll take out Aunt May?
I mean, not Aunt May. I'm sorry, take out Happy. Just Happy.
Yeah, Happy's
Aunt May
gone.
and Happy's relationship.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But if you just this is a Spider-Man movie on its own, and you take out the Tony Stark situation. So think about how they ended Spider. So I told people this months ago, and I'm looking you dead in the eye when I tell you this. I told everybody that J.K. Simmons will be reprising his role as J. Jonah Jameson. Nobody believed me, and he did.
Hell
yes! I told people months. Awesome. I told people months ago about that. They was like, "No, he's not." I said, "Okay, watch." And then he showed up, and I was like, "I told you, bitches."
I died.
I was like, ah!
So
good.
So you got to
to
remember.
be
So
fair,
now
he reprises his role for everything too. Like even in the PS4 game, he reprised his role in there as well.
He's the voice.
But he also does the voice for the cartoons too, like the Lego Movie, like the.
I mean, they are.
because he's somebody you don't want to replace.
Yeah.
So you look at it like the only other thing that was MCU related in that post credit scene was the what's new coming 1, 2, 3. The building, the Baxter building is coming. But
Baxter building.
Right. But now you don't have to talk about it because it was just something. It was an Easter egg. It wasn't anything that was openly acknowledged. So there's so many things we think that we have to worry about. But the problem is you now have to bring that character into a universe that makes no sense. You have Venom who has Spider-Man abilities, but has never touched Spider-Man. You have the Suit who is the dumbest thing in the world because he told Eddie Brock, I'm a loser on my planet like you. What? I wish they would have set it on fire after that. But now, and then also you gave Woody Harrelson the worst red wig in history.
That's not his natural hair.
Terrible. So now you're gonna also, he was in Venom. Yes, I am the one that was quoted on Screen Rant and every other thing. Tom Holland did film scenes for Venom. The Peter Parker was in Venom. The problem was Marvel saw the movie and was like, take him out. So yeah, I've said it here, I've said it Collided Live, I've been quoted about it, and I'm saying it again. So they tried to blend that universe already, but they put Peter Parker in it to play it safe. You put Parker in it, there's no real worries. You put Spider-Man in it, everybody's like, oh my God, there's a big difference.
Yep.
All right, I'm stop dropping jewels.
I just want to point out we've gone nearly a half hour and nobody has said Peter Tingle yet.
Peter Tingle.
That was going to be the next thing I brought up was the Peter Tingle.
I mean, I've been feeling it for a half
I was
hour.
too.
I didn't want to say it out loud.
Val has been feeling the Peter Tingle since she met Tom Holland yesterday.
I mean, really, since 2 years ago. Let's not.
I'm with Peter. Can we not call it that, the Peter
Yeah,
Tingle?
it makes me feel weird because I don't think of him that way.
I know you don't.
He doesn't make me tingle that way. He's a cute kid. He's a cute kid. I'm 40. Leave me alone.
But like something
He's like
that
12.
Something that I was always wondering is like, so you think about older Spider-Man movies. You think about the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield movies. Do you think that they had a blend? Like, I think that Tobey Maguire made a good Peter Parker, but a terrible Spider-Man.
When you're a jet all the way.
He didn't write it. I don't blame him.
But then, like, I think Andrew Garfield was a terrible Peter Parker, but an okay Spider-Man. Like, that scene when he explains to Emma Stone that he's Spider-Man, he's like rubbing his chest and stuff. Like, I can never watch that movie.
That's not
again.
how you'd explain. I'm Spider-Man. Girl.
Like, it just feels
You see this?
Just
You got all this spider goodness.
it's like,
you want to see my Peter Tingle?
Zach, just a tip for you. Anytime you find yourself rubbing your chest, but you're doing it wrong.
Son,
I don't
this
know. I thought
this
that
is
felt right.
wrong.
That
I don't
felt
want to be
to
right.
me. That felt right to me.
Damn that! Do you see this chest? I'm gonna rub this chest.
I saw that last night at the
I
panel.
work on this chest a lot. I'm gonna rub this
I
chest.
saw what you could do with that thing.
Can we talk about
Can
how
you rephrase that statement? I'm sorry.
Make it worse. Make it worse.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get Jake to take off the glasses.
It's everyone's goal now, Jake.
I know.
Everyone's goal.
I always thought it was funny when people were freaking out about Zendaya being cast as MJ, and because they cast a blonde to play MJ in the original movie, and then a redhead to play Gwen Stacy in the Andrew Garfield movies. Who cares?
The only
Anybody
reason
could do it.
I was pissed that they cast her is because I met her when she was a bratty kid.
Oh, really?
When she was doing Shake It Up on the Disney Channel, but she was at the age where you're a bratty kid. So in my mind, I was like, she's kind of a snot. Why is she going to mess up my movie? But then I saw her in a couple movies before that, and then she was in this movie, and I'm like, perfect casting. It had nothing to do with anything else other than I thought she was a brat and she was going to mess up my movie.
And I think the fact that they made her, she's not the most popular girl in school.
No, I love that.
I love that because anything with a teenager, it's got to be the jock or the head cheerleader. No, that's not 99.9% of kids in this world. They want, the nerdy science kid or the outcast kids. That's another form of representation you were talking about.
I really liked that they kept her investigative side. Like, she's really smart, really investigative, but also super quirky and dark and emo and weird. But, I thought it was a great twist on the character.
I wanted more from her in Far From Home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I was wanting more. Like, I just felt like they kind of had her in the movie because they felt like they had her in the movie and they had her do some really clever things and stuff. But I felt like that movie should have been more her. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes.
No, I agree.
Not alone.
100%.
Well, they had a ton in that movie. When you think about it, they had
She
so
was
many
on
different.
screen, but
She didn't get enough. Almost
It was just
nothing
like
got
just
enough.
to say, oh, MJ's here too.
Yeah, and I think they tried to focus on that relationship piece. I mean, he's trying to impress her. They're going to Italy or whatever, and
The Black Dahlia.
Yeah, the Black Dahlia. So I think they were trying to focus on that.
So
a little more,
romantic.
but then I do like that she found out that he was Spider-Man. I like that.
I think there's a lot more opportunities for her in 3 when you remove all of the Marvel lore. You got to fill it with something that's more screen time for MJ.
And also, think about it, because with the next Spider-Man, the next 2 actually, because it was only supposed to be 1, but may not be 1 or maybe 2, but Disney is trying to pull John Watts off because they're like, oh, so we ain't going to work together? Come on back. But we'll find out what happens to that. But nonetheless, with this one, now his whole 3rd movie is about trying to prove I'm not Spider-Man. Right. And so how much will you got to have MJ with him the whole time? So now it's between him, MJ, and Ned trying to prove he's not Spider-Man. So that, I mean, you want more Zendaya, you're going to be able to get it now because of what this story is. Yep. She's got to cover for him every time he's got to go somewhere.
Right.
I mean, can you really pretend? I mean, it's on national television, right?
The hardest part
the
is
deep fake videos that are out now.
I think the problem is too with them taking away the Stark technology. If they call it, if he still has the tech but don't call it Stark tech, he'll learn how to do a hologram of himself or a hologram of Spider-Man. So this way they can be they can be in 2 different places at one time, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, it is him." It isn't him.
True.
I mean.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned it was on national television. It was on the Daily Bugle, which it seems like they made like InfoWars.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It's to make it so it's a questionable, credible source. So on national television, kind of,
sort of.
Yeah.
Fake news.
So you're telling me
MJ smells like sulfur.
So you're telling me J. Jonah Jameson thinks that all the frogs are turning gay?
Yes.
I wouldn't put it past him. I don't know.
Well, this is bald J. Jonah Jameson.
He looks so good though.
He does.
Have you seen J. Jonah Jameson in Whiplash? He's so good.
He's so good. So we've got about 5 to 8 minutes left before we have to run to another panel. But I want to kind of go around the table, and I just want you to tell everyone who your favorite, what your favorite Spider-Man movie is out of any. And we're not going to judge you. This is a safe place. And it can be it could be an animated series. It can be a movie. It can whatever your favorite Spider-Man something is, unless it's on Pornhub. You can't say.
Look, I'm telling you, there's a
you
Spider-Man MJ porn. And she getting it. Like Peter giving that time.
The Peter tingle?
No, it ain't even a Peter tingle. He giving it a Peter beard. Like he giving it that long. Like it's just him. He getting it with the webbing. Like, all right, I'm done.
What goes around comes around.
Well,
You're gonna leave that in, right? You're gonna leave that.
It'll be in.
This is this version's equivalent of the shocker from the Star Wars episode.
You can't say shocker after you talk about porn, Tracy.
I was going to say Into the Spiderverse, but now after that, I think I'm going to have to go with the spider porn.
Incognito
He
right
painted
now.
such a beautiful picture with his
Like,
words.
He's about to reach his peak. His Spidey sense go off. He like
PS4's Spider-Man game. Got to stick with that.
It's so good.
Yeah,
It is
It's amazing. Literally amazing.
At the end,
And I can't
somebody's
wait
like,
for
the
the
only thing
second
left
one.
is Spider-Man 3. They're like, dang it.
Sorry, James.
I like, there was something about Topher Grace. Topher Grace was there. Can we pray on James Franco? No. Thomas Hayden Church? No, we can't even reach out about Thomas Hayden Church. Geez.
The one thing I will say that they did perfectly over inside the game. No. You shut your face right now. is the meeting, like the actual Spider-Man meeting between Miles Morales and Peter Parker.
So good.
The end scene. I want to see that so much. So yeah.
The sequel needs to be based on that scene.
Spider-Man homies. Spider-Man homies. That's what's coming.
Yeah, I'm following this train. I was going to say the PS4 Spider-Man game as well. I'm even repping it with my shirt.
I think Into the Spider-Verse for me. That movie was so important for so many people, and just that movie is incredible on so many levels.
You guys know I love Tom Holland. I mean, a lot, and I love the MC universe, but I gotta say Into the Spider-Verse and Miles Morales, and I met the kid that plays Miles Morales at CES, and Shamik Moore. I watched him dance, I watched him sing. He talked to me for like 25 minutes about just the world. This 23-year-old kid is amazing, and I want to see him and Tom Holland in a movie together. I know it's not ever gonna happen, but that is my wish.
Isn't Shamik in that new Wu-Tang thing on Hulu?
Which is, by the way, amazing. The first 3 episodes. If you are not watching it on Hulu, you are missing out. For spoilers, Ghostface and Raekwon want to kill each other in the first 3 minutes.
Get your life right with Jesus and watch it.
I gotta go with my boy Miles. Like, Spider-Verse is just an amazing movie.
I'm surprised nobody has said this one movie yet. Go ahead.
What?
No, I'm gonna say it. If nobody say it, I'm gonna still say it regardless.
Miles is my dude. Like, he's just, the representation, his story. I love Peter Parker, and I love that we got to see Peter Parker jaded in this one. Like, we know his story, but this was Miles' story, him coming in, and it was just heartwarming. Hey.
What's up?
Y'all missed it, but there was a shoulder touch.
Einstein said time was relative.
I don't know what's happening over there. Colin doesn't know what's happening over there.
If I had my spider suit on, I wore that yesterday. It would have been perfect.
PS4 game, hands down. Love being able to dive in, play as the character, be surrounded by that universe. And being able to, just web swinging around is fun in itself. But then all the Miles Morales stuff and
that has been something that these movies have lacked so much, is just quintessential web slinging. And the fact that you could go and get it, and it's one of the, so I've talked to Tom Holland before a couple times. He is he was a fantastic gymnast, and that is something where he can actually do it. So it's like not utilizing that, which is one of the quintessential parts of Spider-Man, not letting him actually tumble and fly and do anything sort of acrobatic through the air it's a loss.
Unless he's in a neighborhood.
Well,
where there's nothing to swing off
and that's something I really loved about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is that they ended each one with like this celebratory swing through there, and I loved it.
I kind of want to give an honorable mention just to the original Spider-Man, simply because Macho Man Randy Savage was in it. And then also Michael Keaton in Homecoming as the Vulture he's just so good. That's everything you who would have thought you could get that kind of depth out of the Vulture?
When I heard they were doing the Vulture, I'm like, oh no. And then I went, oh.
That's the cool thing. We got to see so many cool villains out of that.
But top to bottom, Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite Spider-Man movie. So you've got your own.
I've got my own.
He owns this show.
There was this old TV series in the 70s.
Oh yeah,
no, just kidding.
I grew up on that.
But anyway, that was the first one I remember seeing. No, it's Into the Spider-Verse for me.
I go Spider-Verse, but Spider-Man 2
Thank you.
is really good.
It is. It's really good.
Spider-Man 2 is completely people forget that movie is so dope and
It
dark
is good.
at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It is so
Tracy, do you have something to sing from Spider-Man 2?
Not from Spider-Man 2.
Oh, dang it.
We can just do the
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
So I love Into the Spider-Verse, but I'm actually going to go Homecoming on this one, just because of one scene in particular when Peter is confronting Vulture in the hangar, and he has the building collapse on him. And he's sitting there, like, looking in the thing, and he's, like, screaming for help, and he's, like, saying he can't breathe and all this other stuff. And then he sees his reflection, and just the, come on, Spider-Man, come on, Peter. Like, just seeing that. And, yeah, that's, like, probably my favorite scene in all Spider-Man movies.
More than
more than the dancing.
Spider-Man 2 reminded me. Two of my favorite comedians are actually in Spider-Man movies. Joey Diaz is in Spider-Man 2. He's the guy that steps in front of Doc Ock and says, "You got to go through me."
You got to go through
and then
me.
Donnell Rawlings, one of the best comedians working today, he's the guy that goes, that dude stole that Spider-Man's pizza or something like Spider-Man stole that dude's pizza.
Me,
that's what it was.
It's Into the Spiderverse because I cried off one scene in particular, the conversation that Miles' dad was having with him through the door.
Yes. Oh my.
Crying right now.
Yeah.
The scene he had through the door, because I needed to. That was the scene. But also, like I said, Spider-Man 2, because it does not get recognized enough because we always overlook it because of Tobey Maguire as a whole. But Alfred Molina as Doc Ock was amazing. And then to see the torment he had to go through also with Harry finding out who he was. So all of that played a role. Then you have Harry, going crazy, hearing Norman Osborn's voice. So all those different things played out. And then I just kind of wish they would have let Kirsten Dunst just fall in the river. But it's like, you could have killed that MJ and nobody would have.
Actually, Spider-Man 2, I saw it not too long ago. That quality of the movie, like the visuals, the special effects, it really still holds up.
It still holds.
Yeah.
It's that scene where he has to hold the train.
Yeah.
Is one of the best scenes. To watch the suit rip and look, an average person with that much strength might lose, an arm. But the fact you saw his suit rip, because that was the best way they can show you the real life effect of it.
Yeah.
Instead of showing his arm rip out, his suit is tearing.
Jay, I'm glad you brought up the scene with Miles and his dad in the door, because I honestly, when I was watching that, I remember thinking this could be the equivalent to like the generation now, like a father-son moment as Field of Dreams, like you want to have a catch.
Yeah.
That's where I remember feeling that.
Well, I didn't want to bring up Field of Dreams because if you build it, they will come. But
are we going back there again?
Where are we going?
No. But as a dad or two, that is mimicking. Like I might have to have those conversations with either my son or my daughter, and so I think about those things, and so that's why it made me tear up. And I'm gonna stop talking about this right now because I am too big to be at this table crying.
All right, we want to thank everyone, right?
Yeah, we do. Thank you, everybody, for being on the show. If you want to find us, we are Movies That Make Us, and you guys.
We will put everyone's links when we
there,
post this, so that you can go check out everyone else's podcast. But thank you so much for talking about Spider-Man with us.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
And we won't see you at the movies.
This has been a Stolen Droids Media production.